Hear ye, hear ye! I'm Dave Nelson. On this 11th day of March 2015, I call to order this, the 43rd meeting of the ye old SciFi Geeks Club from galacticnetcasts.com. So let's all slip on our special funny hats and membership pins, give the secret handshake, and let's get the show underway. Let's get the agenda underway. And before we officially start, let's bring in our guest for the week, our guest Geek. He's a first-time guest to the SciFi Geeks Club, one of the hosts of the weekly podcast Superhero Speak. He's a combination of Sheldon Cooper and Cisco Ramon. And Cisco Ramon, by the way, I think my favorite new character on TV. He's awesome. He's on The Flash. You guys should watch that show. Welcome to the SciFi Geeks Club, Mr. Dave Markowski.
Hey.
Yes. And for those who don't know, I wrote that intro because I just recently came to a realization that, of course, on Big Bang Theory, Sheldon always wears a lot of times Flash T-shirts, and someone pointed out that Cisco is constantly wearing Big Bang T-shirts.
Really?
On Flash.
I did not pick that up. That's interesting. Wow.
Yes. So yeah, there's some kind of cross show they need to do there.
Well, they can't because CBS and the CW are owned by the same company.
Yes.
Because theoretically could do a crossover if they wanted. I don't know if it's wise for them to do that crossover, but they could.
Yes.
Mind blown. Yep.
Well, Dave, before we go any further, you have a special fanfare, so listen up here. Here we go. We like to make our guests feel welcome.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome, and welcome to the show. Before we bring in our co-host, why don't you tell us a little bit something about Superhero Speak podcast and a little bit of something about you?
Okay. Well, Superhero Speak, we actually, it's a weekly show. We post every Wednesday. Of course, that's no accident. Wednesday is New Comic Book Day. That's why we post on Wednesday. And it actually started, and this is a little bit about me. I've been going to comic book conventions since 2000, started volunteering for them in about, I would say, 2006. And through that experience, I've gotten to know a lot of artists and writers, had a lot of great conversations with them. And then I started working at a company 4 years ago and became really good friends with two of the guys there, and we would have a lot of comic book conversations, and we would talk about some of the things that have happened to me at conventions. I'm like, oh, let's start a podcast. So yeah, I mean, we've been described, actually, one of the best feedbacks we ever got, and we now use that in the show description, is that we're like the conversations you have at a comic book shop. Which is great. And then, you know, we just posted our 95th episode, so we've been doing this for almost 2 years now, and it's a lot of fun. We've had some really great guests. We actually just had Eric. My God, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. Eric Larson was just on the last episode, and before that we had Tom DeFalco and Ron Friends on. So. Yeah, we get a lot of good guests from the comic book world in there, and when we don't have them on, we steal the format from the Nerdist, and we do what we call a hostful, and we basically complain about comic books and the state of comic book movies.
Well,
Nice.
I can't wait for our discussion topic because that will involve that in particular. So that's coming up after the news, but first let's bring in our co-hosts. Our usual cast of characters to the SciFi Geeks Club. Brad Ludwig, Anessa Moyens, and Matt Stein. How you guys doing?
Good. Very good.
Matt, I'm really hoping that you will actually stay the whole episode this time around.
I fixed my computer.
Okay.
Yay!
So, do you want to explain exactly what happened last week? Because people listening, I'm sure, were like, what the hell happened to Matt? Because we don't really mention that you left.
Or they were like, oh, thank God that asshole's gone. So on the back side of the case of my computer, all of my fans plug into like a hub. for cable management, and 2 of them apparently unplugged themselves, so it kept overheating and shutting down.
Wild.
Yeah, but I was too stubborn to just like pull it open right away, so I kept trying to turn my computer back on. So it like, yeah, I'm surprised I didn't do more damage, but it's one of those things where it's like I have no choice but to fix it, because that's like asking. It's like a butcher going to have someone else chop his meat. Being in IT, I have to fix my own computer.
Yeah, no, of course. That's a must.
Yeah,
if you didn't, then you'll get laughed at, and you
more so than I already do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so we're glad to have you back, Matt. We're glad to have Brad and Nessa here as well, along with Dave. Now let's get on with things and the hypothetical question of the week. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here we go. If you were trapped, like for example, on an out-of-control bus, being held by an evil villain, or a similar situation to that, what superhero would you want to come rescue you? Let's start with our guest, Dave Markowski. Your answer, sir.
That's a good one. I guess I'll just go with my favorite superhero, Spider-Man. Because most cases he always is able to save the person without them getting hurt. Except for Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
So I'll go with Spider-Man.
All right. Matt, you're next.
I mean, if the Terminator would be considered a superhero, I would go with that. But
Well, he was in Dark Horse Comics. That's.
But he's not technically a superhero. I was thinking that you might pick like the Punisher or something like that.
I was actually gonna go with like Christian Bale style Batman, just so I could hear him yell, "Listen to me," and then I could laugh at him hysterically as he saves my life.
Yeah, he really just overdoes the Batman voice.
Yeah, he went from like normal to gravelly a little too quick, but
Yeah, he's like, all right, now Batman.
Yep.
I just watched The Dark Knight last weekend, and I had forgotten how much he does that voice. Like how different that voice is from his normal voice. Like it's over the top.
It took me an entire movie to like finally get used to it.
We actually had a discussion about this on the way back from Ohio. The guy who drove his son, it just watched all 3 movies for the first time, and he doesn't understand why Bruce Wayne and Batman's voice is so different.
I've wondered if Christian Bale went through a lot of throat lozenges while he was recording those movies.
Probably. Lots of tea and lots of honey.
Either that or they did it all like post. So he may have done like a Batman voice and then they just, cranked the crap out of everything and made it sound really bad.
Yeah, you could sweeten that up with audio.
Or sour it, apparently.
Yeah. Sour it. Good one. Yeah, that's more appropriate. All right, so Inessa, what superhero character would you want to rescue you from the burning building or something?
Oh my gosh. Man, that's kind of a tough choice. I would probably end up going with I think maybe Arrow, because then I'd get to ride on the back of the motorcycle.
Good point.
I guess Brad needs a motorcycle.
I really do.
Like
well,
Green?
my plan was to eventually get a motorcycle license, so it's there in the future.
Yeah, I think this is the year we do it.
Well, here's what you do, Inessa. You start working out. You train enough that you could defeat Arrow and just knock him off and ride the motorcycle home.
Or I could save up and buy my own motorcycle, and then we could tour the country. Little motorcycle gang.
There we go.
You guys you're driving, Brad's in the back, and then Arrow is just...
Oh, Brad would be getting his own license.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or 2 words, sidecar.
Sidecar, I was thinking sidecar, yeah. Oh, that's even better because you could like paint like a logo on the side of it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All
We're going on tour across country with the Green Arrow and motorcycles.
You're damn right we are.
Well, the Green Arrow did the whole cross-country tour with Green Lantern, right?
Hard.
Yes.
Hard. Oh, I can't remember what they called them. Hard luck heroes or.
You know, Dave?
Not off the top of my head. I do remember that series. The books were just Green Arrow, Green Lantern, but they did have a name.
Yeah, hard traveling heroes.
That's it.
Ah.
All right, Brad, your answer.
Since we live in Wisconsin, I would angle for the Great Lakes Avengers, so I would like either Immortal Man or Doorman. Actually, I think I prefer Doorman because Doorman's ability is basically he can position his body between in a wall, and you can walk through him. So, if you were standing against the bus, we could crawl through him and be out of the bus.
That's a very specific power to have.
Oh, it is. And the Great Lakes Avengers, you can either they do appear. I can't remember if it was John Byrne, I think, was the artist at the time, but I know that they appeared in West Coast Avengers, and then they in the early to mid 2000s had a couple of miniseries, at least one. It's been a while since I've looked through my comic book collection, but I know I did get them. But yeah, Great Lakes Avengers all the way. Boom.
A quick note on the Great Lake Avengers. We actually recently had Kirby Crackle, Kyle Stevens from Kirby Crackle on our show. If you guys haven't heard of Kirby Crackle, look them up. They're a great band, and they have a song, Great Lake Avengers, where it's about a guy who wants to be a superhero, but the only team that will accept him is the Great Lake Avengers, and he keeps complaining about it, and then at the end of the song he decides to finally join them, because no one else will have them.
Wait, are they considered one of the lamest superhero team-ups?
Oh, you've got Doorman, Immortal Man, Thumbelina, who is a supermodel whose power is to basically increase her mass. I mean, incredibly, so that she looks very obese. So she's got strength and that. There's the I can't remember what her name is, but she seems like a humanoid pterodactyl hybrid, and she can fly. And I'm missing somebody. Immortal Man, who basically cannot die. He'll get shot and killed, and then he'll come back in 5 minutes. So, yeah, if there's some trap that's there's no way around it, he'll be I'll be back, and he'll go do whatever needs to be done, get killed, and come back in 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, my answer is going to be Ms. Marvel, because she's almost got as much power as Superman, right? She's got a lot of flying and stuff like that, I think.
Flying, invulnerability, strength.
Yeah. And she's a girl, so win-win. That's what I'm doing. That's where I'm going with that.
Flatman is one of the other members of the team.
Okay. All right. Hey, Matt, before I forget, I need or remind me to ask you about your trip to Arnold Fest at the end of the show.
Oh boy, will I not forget to tell you guys about that.
Okay. All right. Don't let me forget.
I'll make a big old note for you.
All right. Okay, let's start with the news. Disney to release 20-plus new books to fill the Star Wars gap between now and The Force Awakens. 20 books. That's a lot of reading between now and December. What do you guys think? Is that too much?
Well, I mean, it also depends, too, on where
How big are the books?
Yeah, they're not all the same. It's like a combination of young adult teen books, picture books, and sticker books for kids. So you wouldn't necessarily read all of them because some aren't appropriate for you particularly. But 20 seems like a pretty big number.
Well, they're trying to fill in the gap, I guess, right between Jedi and Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And they're trying to say that the extended universe doesn't exist anymore. This is now canon.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's still, even if it's 10 books, it's a lot to read between now and the time the movie comes out.
Okay, so the books will fall within the range of the mysterious new Lucasfilm Story Committee, meaning they'll be filled with Easter eggs. Easter eggs. Leading into the release of The Force Awakens. So you may be better off reading these books because you may know things that other people that haven't read the books don't know going into the film. So if you're a big reader, if you like reading, then definitely check out the books that are appropriate for your age range in these 20 that are being released between now and The Force Awakens. Sounds like they'll be digging a whole lot deeper into the lost decades, like Dave said, between the original trilogy and the new film. All right, you guys going to pick up any of these? Brad, Anessa, I know that you guys are big readers.
No, I don't think. No. 20 books. That's a lot to chew through before The Force Awakens, and no, I don't have that kind of time.
See if some of them are available on Audible.
I'm wondering that since Marvel has re-released the Star Wars comic, will they be telling some of these stories in the comics?
Yeah, you'd think that they would be as kind of another way, because they did that with. I mean, and this is a J.J. Abrams property too, so they did that with the Star Trek.
Right.
Whole, like a backstory in comics before both the Star Trek movies came out. So maybe it'll be the same deal.
Yeah, those I would definitely pick up.
All right, let's move on to the Walking Dead spinoff. Gets a not one but a 2-season order. So AMC definitely thinks that this series is going to do well for them. The first season will reportedly consist of 6 episodes, like the original did, more like a miniseries, and that's going to actually premiere late this summer. So you don't have to wait that long for this Walking Dead spinoff. And no word on exactly how many episodes the second season will be comprised of, but if it's like the flagship, there'll be about 13 episodes the second season. I remember watching the first season of The Walking Dead feeling gypped that we only got 6 episodes. And they quickly remedied that's a hard word to say, the second season.
Yeah, but I think it worked for them. For the first season, at least. I stopped watching after the first season. But having the short season, I think, left people really wanting more, so when the next season came back, they were that much more into it for absolutely no reason, in my opinion. Because it was like people didn't get enough to really know what the hell the show was going to be about. Once again, all my opinion, because I didn't read any of the books, and I actually don't even really care about the show. But that's how I felt at the end of the first season, which was part of the reason I didn't go back for more, because that's like seeing side boob and being like, I'm in love with this girl now. You know what I mean? It's just a tease.
So you didn't get a chance to sit down with the girl, have a meaningful conversation, find out what your likes and dislikes were. Maybe maybe they're what was your sign, Dave?
Gemini.
Gemini. Maybe you were maybe she was Gemini and didn't like asking or people asking about her sign. So
right, and it could also be maybe it was Peter Griffin's side boob.
Mm-hmm. You like that side boob? That's my side boob.
Side boob.
So this article also includes a couple of pictures, screenshots from some scenes from the spin-off series, and it looks pretty good. It's basically going to follow earlier on, at least reportedly earlier on in the zombie outbreak, and it's going to take place in Los Angeles. The 2 main characters are a high school teacher and a guidance counselor, Sean Cabrera and Kim Dickens, and then there's going to be some younger cast members. So I'm guessing that maybe some of the younger cast members might be students from their school as well. Could be. Who knows?
Yeah.
And one of the pictures they show is 3 of the characters stumbling on a undead body, and it totally looks like they don't know what it is. So that would seem to indicate that's early in the outbreak, which is exciting because I want to know how the hell it all happened.
Agreed.
So late summer, look for the Walking Dead spinoff. No name yet. Are you guys excited for this?
No.
Well, of course you aren't, Matt, because told you Mark.
Mark. That happens.
Of course you are. What's your name?
Well, I don't know. Whenever they do prequels, I always get nervous. What was the one they did for Battlestar Galactica?
Caprica.
Oh, Caprica.
Yeah.
Caprica, that had so much promise and then, died pretty quickly. So, yes, I want to know, but do I need a whole new show to tell me that?
I think that this might work just because we don't know enough. Like, we don't know how it happened, and this also takes place on the complete other end or other side of the country. So it's a whole new cast of characters. It's earlier in the timeline. We may find out some things we didn't find out from the original series, and it's not based on the comic book, so they're not constrained. Well, the original series hasn't been constrained by the comic book because they've made their own changes, but no preconceived notions going into it. At least that's my feeling on it.
True.
Okay. So Brad shared this story in the Galactic Netcast Facebook group earlier. Was it yesterday or today? I forget.
Yesterday.
Okay. So do you want to take the lead on this?
Sure. Tron 3 is filming this fall. Van City Buzz, a local Vancouver, British Columbia blog, broke the news that filming on Tron 3 is set to begin this fall, and Badass Digest got reliable confirmation that the film really is a go, with director Joseph Kosinski back on board. Assuming all of Van City Buzz's intel is correct, Garrett Hedlund will be returning as Sam Flynn, son of Kevin Flynn, and filming will launch October 5th of 2015.
No information on any of the other cast members, if that girl will be coming back or not. I forget.
Olivia Wilde.
Yeah. Or who's the actor that plays Kevin Flynn?
I don't remember.
Come on. Older actor.
It's Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, Jeff Bridges. Sorry, I couldn't remember his name. So no other additional information on that right now as we speak.
Well, I mean, Jeff Bridges died at the end of the film.
Oh, he did. Oh, I forgot. I watched it once.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
So, yeah, he died at the end of the film, and that was really kind of the only way that could end. And with Cora, is that her name, Cora? I think so. I keep thinking of Legend of Korra. I keep getting those two mixed up because the names sound similar. And she's out in the real world, and she was a kind of an intelligent digital being. So some interesting stories that could definitely take place there. It'd be interesting to see if she comes back because now that she's married, has a kid, and has worked on other projects. If she would come back and do that film, that would be cool to see more of that story. So
when did the second one come out? What year was that?
I want to say 2012.
Sounds about right.
2010.
2010. Okay. Oh my God! Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that long ago.
5 years ago. Okay. A lot of stuff being filmed out in British Columbia. That was the big news here in Canada today because they announced that the Tron 2 was being filmed in British Columbia, and some of the other stuff being filmed there is things like Arrow and the Flash, which kind of relate to our next story. The first images of the new Supergirl in full costume were unveiled this last week. CBS began production on their live-action Supergirl pilot last week, and it didn't take long for the network to reveal her look. I think it took a lot of people by surprise. I don't think most people thought it would come so fast. Do you guys agree? Brad and Dave, particularly?
Well, it's premiering this year, right?
Yeah, this fall.
Right. So I mean, I would, with a sci-fi show like that, with a lot of post-production, I would think, they're getting ready to start filming pretty soon.
Yeah. I think they also wanted to beat like the paparazzi.
True.
Yeah. And also with the Flash is riding on a huge crest of promotion and buzz. And Arrow's doing exceptional too, so I think they wanted to make sure that they were tacking that on at a point where they knew that they were high on the opinions of fans of the show, and trying to cash in on that and make sure that they tried to create a positive buzz and get people excited about this show too. So.
And speaking of those two shows, the person that designed her outfit, Colleen Atwood, designed the costume for Arrow and the Flash as well. She's an Oscar award winner, and describing the look, it's a little bit classic in design, a little bit modern too, and it's also got the Man of Steel look to the texture of it as well.
Yeah, I was taken aback a lot by that picture. I mean, because they definitely went with the classic S. Not using the Man of Steel style S, which was interesting. But it doesn't feel like the new 52 style costume. It's the skirt, the long shirt. She's not showing belly or anything. So it's an interesting take, and it's its own take, which I like. I appreciate. I just kind of wonder how much input DC had into that outfit.
I wonder how much DC has, how much influence they have on the other CW and shows.
They definitely do plot-wise, because they wanted to, instead of having Adam, Ray Palmer, be the hero this season, that was going to, or the journey of a person that was going to become a hero, they wanted Ted Kord, who is the Blue Beetle. And DC said, no, we have plans for that character and that product, so use somebody else.
So it's kind of, they're not really in the same universe, the TV shows and in the cinematic universe.
No.
But still they can't do things that the movie universe is going to do. Probably vice versa. Well, probably not vice versa, because they've got their own Flash coming, right? The Marvel.
Yes.
Marvel, the cinematic universe.
Yep.
Right. But they have hinted that Supergirl could be tying in with Flash and Arrow, because it's the same showrunner on that show. So
CBS and the CW are owned by the same company too.
Yep.
Right. Exactly. So it could happen. Which is funny, which means they're quickly building a much more unique and interesting world on TV than they are in the movies. It's moving a lot faster, and eventually they're going to have to do a new 52 style reboot or some kind of crisis and combine them, because I think that's what the fans are eventually going to want.
The thing about DC Comics and their products is looking at the dominance that Marvel has with the cinematic universe. The one thing that DC has always had going for them, and this goes back to Batman the Animated Series, is their TV product, their in-home market. Batman the Animated Series, you look at the Justice League series, you look at all the individual animated films that DC has done, all are top-notch. I can't think of one that has really sucked, but their movies have not been good, with the exception of the Batman series with Christian Bale. But Man of Steel, you want to talk about gritty realism, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But their cinematic product has been crap, but they continue to dominate in TV with Arrow, with the Flash, and if you've got the same showrunner, Supergirl should probably do very well too.
And don't forget, we talked about this last week, the possible superhero team-up show that it's rumored to be in development as well.
I'm really interested in that. Victor Graber said in an interview that while he was excited by the Firestorm character, he lives in New York. He loves New York, and he can do plays in New York. He loves to work on Broadway in those theaters, and the thought of him being on a regular show did not appeal to him. So I'm kind of wondering how much of a dump truck of cash they poured onto his front lawn to make him think about doing this. So I want details on that.
Yeah, and we were actually talking about that show in our latest episode, which, funny enough, we named DC's Incontinuity. Yes, when it's a house show, we always come up with a kind of a funny, sarcastic title. And one thing that kind of has us baffled, you have Firestorm, Atom, and then there's some casting call rumors out about the other characters. They haven't said the names, but one of them very much sounds like Booster Gold.
Yes.
And I can't remember the other two characters off the top of my head.
It looks like it's going to be, to me, it's going to be Booster Gold. It's going to be Fire from the old Justice League series from the 80s. And my last pick was Static Shock.
Static Shock, right. But there's a rumor that they're doing a separate Static Shock project. And so some people were saying maybe Black Lightning, which would be kind of funny. But then you kind of wonder, well, what team is this? You know, this really isn't the Justice League, and if they're doing Justice League movie, they're not going to want the show to be called Justice League.
No.
And it's not Justice Society, so, like, what are they going to call this team? What's it going to,
Well, TV, they have changed a lot of this already. You know, a lot of the Arrow stuff is drawing from the Batman universe, and
yes, I enjoy Green Batman.
The dark and gritty take on Arrow is kind of being deemed a bit like Green Batman.
Okay. Okay. Anessa, your mic's off.
Yep.
It's because Brad muted me.
Okay.
But no, I was saying that it's because he's in the show. Arrow's just very like broody. And just kind of dark, and he had money at one point, and so you've got a lot of similarities in background. I mean, like his parents didn't get murdered, but his dad died. So there's a lot of similarities, and just the vibe. It does have kind of a Batman/Gotham City feel to it.
He does have a lot of tragedy in his life, so that
he does
feeds the character. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, that's standard CW background. And then along came Flash, and you can't do that with the Flash at all.
No,
we talked about that last week, how the universes are very different, and when they did the crossover, they actually kind of reflected that on each other, which was kind of neat.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on from DC to Marvel. Did you guys get a chance to check out the Daredevil trailer that was released this week?
Yes.
I have not.
Oh, okay. So only Dave and I have seen it. Unless Matt saw it. Matt?
No, I actually did not even know that it existed until right now.
Well, I think you might like the Daredevil, or not the Daredevil. Daredevil.
You might like that there, Daredevil.
I don't know. I heard
watch on the internet.
I heard the first movie was really bad, so I never seeing it.
Don't be influenced by it.
Hey, you might like it, but don't see that one thing that you may have actually seen of it. Come on, Dave.
Well, the trailer for the show definitely is taking it in the right direction this time. It's not following that movie at all. And the trailer kind of talks about the Kingpin and Matt Murdock's and the Kingpin's relationship, and there being either a very defined line between good and evil, or the blurred line between good and evil, which This is what a lot of what the Daredevil comic books are about. Especially, I can't think of when Miller was doing the books. He brought a lot of that aspect in. So
Yeah,
I'm really excited for this show. I'm actually getting a Netflix subscription to watch this. I don't have one, and this will be.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's huge. Okay, yeah, April. What was April? Early April.
Yeah, it's 6th, I believe, 6th or 15th, something like that.
And all the episodes available day and date, so
Right.
you can speed right through them, marathon them.
Hmm.
So, Brad, make sure that you see the trailer, and we want your report next week.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, that's the news. Before we get into our discussion topic, let's get some more comic book related news. And Gregor has the splash page, so let's let him talk for a few minutes, and we'll be right back.
Hello and welcome to the Splash Page, brought to you by the Else Nerds. I'm your host, Gregor Sprague. First up, the antagonist in the Suicide Squad may have been revealed. The big bad in the Suicide Squad movie will reportedly be Antiphone, head of the special operations organization called Onslaught. According to the report from the Latino Review, Antiphone and Onslaught will be hunting superheroes and villains for their own agenda. Antiphone himself is a burn victim with a prosthetic leg, and Ed Harris is rumored to be in consideration for the role. Antiphone is a pretty deep cut for a major movie villain, having only appeared in 2 issues of Suicide Squad from 2002. The choice for a military power rather than a superpower certainly helps distinguish Suicide Squad from the other films in the genre. Suicide Squad opens on August 5th, 2016. Marvel announces reissue series for readers who want to catch up before Secret Wars. This May, as you may have heard by now, Marvel is launching Secret Wars, a massive event that will supposedly forever alter the Marvel Universe as we know it. The series will take place on Battleworld, a realm composed of various Marvel timelines and alternate realities all mashed together. And the events announced so far have featured everything from an all-female Avengers team to a return to the world of Old Man Logan and much more. The publisher has just announced True Believers, a line of comics appearing throughout April that will reprint first issues of classic Marvel events that we'll see revisited in some way during Secret Wars. The books will be priced at $1 per issue, so if you're new to Marvel events and you want to take a peek, you won't have to spend that much. So what events can you expect to visit via the True Believers releases? Well, there's classic cosmic adventures like Infinity Gauntlet and Planet Hulk, X-Men stories like House of M, Age of Apocalypse, and Old Man Logan, Iron Man stories like Armor Wars, universe-spanning tales like Marvel Zombies, Age of Ultron, and Civil War, and Ultimate Universe staples like Ultimate Comics Spider-Man. Plus, creator-owned series Powers will get a re-release for its first issue, just in time for fans of its new TV series to take a peek into the comic. And now for the upcoming releases for March 18th, 2015. Dark Horse Comics has BPRD Hell on Earth number 129 and Frankenstein Underground number 1. DC Comics has Batgirl number 40, Batgirl Endgame number 1, Batwoman number 40, Green Lantern New Guardians number 40, Red Hood and the Outlaws number 40, Sensation Comics featuring Wonder Woman number 8, Supergirl number 40, Superman number 39, and Teen Titans number 8. IDW has Angry Birds Transformers number 4, Judge Dredd number 28, Orphan Black number 2, Powerpuff Girls Smash Up number 3, and TMNT Ongoing number 44. Image Comics has Alex and Ada number 13, Cowl number 9, Invisible Republic number 1, Punks the Comic number 5, Red 1 number 1, Satellite Sam number 12, and Spread number 6. And from Marvel, you have All New Captain America number 5, Amazing Spider-Man number 16.1, Black Widow number 16, Cyclops number 11, Deadpool Art of War trade paperback, Loki Agent of Asgard number 12, Moon Knight number 13, Princess Leia number 2, Storm number 9, and Unbeatable Squirrel Girl number 3. This has been the Splash Page, brought to you by the Else Nerds, and I have been Gregor Sprague.
And by the way, Squirrel Girl was my runner-up to who I'd want to rescue. Because just to be rescued by somebody called Squirrel Girl.
Squirrel Girl in the Marvel Universe is actually one of the most powerful superheroes. S.H.I.E.L.D. has tried to recruit her repeatedly. She has single-handedly taken down Thanos, I believe it was. And she's like, it's like kind of the joke that she was like considered the lamest hero because she's got a mutant ability to basically speak with squirrels is when she was first introduced, and she's got, you know, acrobatics and more athletic skills. And then as time went on, and then I think it was in Great Lakes Avengers where they kind of really unveiled that concept that she's the greatest hero that nobody really realizes is that much of a badass. So.
And if you want more of Gregor in the splash page, you can read it almost every day at our brand new website, galacticnetcasts.com. He runs through the latest comic book related news on the website, so check it out. All right, and we got some big announcements coming up at the end of the show. We've got Matt talking about his journey to Arnold Fest, and we've got Brad with a big announcement at the very end of the show.
Yes.
You want to talk about that, Brad?
Talk about it right now?
No, at the end of the show.
Oh, absolutely, I do.
Okay, because we forgot to talk about it on the alien invasion, but we won't forget it, or I forgot to talk about it. Invasion. We'll talk about it for sure at the end of this podcast.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, let's get into our discussion story. And Dave suggested this. So, Dave.
So forgive me.
What's that?
So forgive me.
It's we're going to talk realism in comic books. Do you want to just explain it a little bit more?
Yeah, this was something that came up. I think I came to the realization that fans were asking for this when Superman Returns came out, believe it or not, because one of the things when they showed images of the costume, one of the biggest criticisms was the cape looks like it's made of rubber, and it's like why would you have that? And you had fans now arguing, oh well, it's more realistic, it's not cloth, so it doesn't catch on fire. So if he runs through fire, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And then, and I've noticed more and more, especially when it comes to the DC side of things, fans will argue like the Dark Knight trilogy was more grounded and more realistic than other superhero movies. Thus, that makes them better. I disagree with that opinion for a lot of reasons. For one, I don't go to the movies for something realistic. I go for an escape to be, entertained for 2 hours at a time. If I want realism, I can watch the evening news. And also, we're watching a movie about a guy from another planet who comes here to save everyone. Throw realism out the window right there. You don't need, suspension of disbelief can go a long way when you're watching a superhero movie.
But you know what? It could also backfire on you having something too goofy. And I'll give the example of before the Dark Knight series, the other Batman series.
Well,
really bad at the end, and partially because of dumb costumes and them being too cartoony.
Well, yeah, I mean, but when Schumacher took over, that was a sign of danger right there, because he said he was a fan of the 60s TV series. And, a lot of people don't realize that the 60s TV series was meant as satire. It was meant as a comedy. They weren't trying to take it too seriously. It was a pop culture satire on superheroes. And now we had gotten, the original '89 Batman movie, which at the time was considered one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. And number two, Batman Returns not as good. And then, of course, Schumacher takes over, and he just goes in a completely different direction with it. Yes, that hurts you very much so. But that's not definition. That's not unrealistic. That's just poor choices for writing and costume design, and even the acting choices. I mean, George Clooney as Batman and Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze were probably two of the worst picked people for a superhero movie ever. It's when people are saying, oh, of course Batman wears an armored suit because, he has to be protected. And it took them a long time before they realized, yeah, but he also needs to turn his head around. When people saying, oh, of course Superman's cape wouldn't be cloth because that was going to catch on fire. It's like, but it's supposed to be Kryptonian fabric. So who cares what it's, what it looks like? It doesn't have to look like a tight molded suit, and a rubber cape. It can be, we can have a flowing cape and have it look realistic. I'm glad they went back to that in Man of Steel. Though there's another argument about realism. A lot of people saying Man of Steel is the greatest Superman movie ever made. But I mean, how much destruction did he cause in that movie? And by the end of the movie, there's no sign that this happened. So there isn't a lot of realism there, but people are saying it's a more realistic take on Superman.
And the whole grittiness, darkness to the DC property, like the Man of Steel, was very, very dark.
Yes.
And it's very jarring coming off of other Superman movies that were bright, colorful, and very kind of cartoony, like the 1980s Superman movies with Christopher Reeve. And even Superman Returns was kind of like very colorful. And then going from that to Man of Steel, it's almost colorless in a way, in a lot of scenes, very dark and gray.
Right. Which also has me concerned for the Batman-Superman team-up movie, because they're always supposed to be the antithesis of each other in the comics. The big blue Boy Scout and the Dark Knight. And if they're already both on the dark in a way, how are we going to have that play off of each other in this movie? I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure it's going to work at this point.
Brad, what are your thoughts on this?
To me, I know what they were trying to do with Man of Steel, or at least I feel like I do. And it failed. The amount of devastation at the end of the movie, while I understand what they were trying to portray, that you've got two people with colossal powers and abilities fighting, there's no way that Superman would have been given a free pass. If they're talking about realism, Superman would be asked to leave planet Earth.
Right.
Get off our planet now!
Seriously, because there's no way with somebody with having that kind of power and showing a complete and utter lack of restraint in usage of it, while the stakes were high, admittedly, that to me is not real. So making the argument that they're trying to ground stuff in reality is sort of ridiculous. And if you look at the history of the writing of both DC and Marvel, Marvel was always more grounded in reality in the comics, and DC was more fantastical. I mean, you look at the creators of Superman, and they wrote fanzines originally. That's what they did. So they enjoyed science, they enjoyed science fiction, and they enjoyed the fantastical aspects of science. So in that respect, a lot of the DC stuff is fantastical. I mean, hell, in the 70s, Superman moved the planet by flying to the bottom of the ocean and giving it a shove so that this laser death beam would not blow up planet Earth. That's pretty fantastical, and that was, when Julius Schwartz, especially when he was the editor-in-chief of the comics, they would have an artist create a fantastical cover for a comic, and then they would hand it to the writer and go, okay, make this work.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
because they wanted to sell books, and so to try to to write that course and not be true to the core of what DC has come from, and you can argue that they can make a change, and that's fine. But I think that you still, at a certain level, have to try to find a balance, and they're doing it in the TV shows. It can be done. So I just find it so hard to believe that they can't accomplish something good with a DC film other than the Batman franchise, the newer Batman franchise.
Well, yeah, and the way it's always been described, I've heard it described best, is DC was always gods among men, and Marvel was, you know, men who become gods, meaning, you know, they were regular people who got powers. Where even when you look at Batman, he was raised as a millionaire, so he was never a regular person anyway. And Superman is from another planet. But you know, it's funny. One of the other arguments too with realism was the Tumbler in the Batman movies, which a lot of people loved. But a lot of people, and the big argument for it was, well, it's more realistic. I mean, if he's fighting this kind of war and crime, of course he's going to ride a tank. And it's like, well, actually, no. That's, to me, it made it less realistic in the sense of, number one, it was Wayne Industries who created that Tumbler, so easily to trace it back to at least somebody associated with Wayne Enterprises is Batman. And two, you can't. It's not stealthy. You can't hide it. I mean, he's out in the open with it, you know. So it took away from it, you know.
Doesn't Lucius Fox actually mention that in The Dark Knight? That it's not conspicuous.
Yes.
It's actually pretty obvious that this is a military machinery.
Yeah, I believe so. Yes. Yeah. And then, so it's like, again, they're using dark and gritty as a excuse for more realism. Where it's no, I think you said it. It's more they're trying to change their image, and they're trying to, you know, maybe they're trying to play catch up with Marvel at this point. I don't know. I don't think so, but. I mean, you look at the New 52 as well, and they've done a lot of the stuff you see in Man of Steel they've been doing in the comics with him, you know, where, like, when they had them starting out, he drops a guy and breaks his legs. And I never pictured Superman treating someone like that before, but it's like, oh, no, now he's a tough guy trying to get, you know, information out of this guy. But he's Superman. He's the big blue Boy Scout. He would never do that. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel they've lost their way. But on the other hand, again, with Flash, as Brad said, they did it. I love the show based solely on the very first thing you hear Barry Allen say at the beginning of the first episode. He said, "I want you to do something for me, and I want you to believe in the impossible." You know, right there, they're telling the audience, guess what? This isn't grounded in reality. This is about a guy who gets powers and can run faster than the speed of sound, and just accept it and have fun. You know.
Oh, they wear that stuff on their sleeve. I mean, the whole what's his name again?
Cisco.
Cisco naming all of the bad guys.
Yes.
That's so awesome, and it's so like over the top. Well, it's almost making fun of the fact that these names are goofy in a way.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's true. But yes, I mean, and again, but they're having fun with it, and it makes you enjoy the show more, I think, at that point. And you know, hopefully they do that with Supergirl.
Let me ask Matt, being a layman in this argument, not really a huge comic book fan, not really a huge comic book movie fan. What would you rather see, Matt? Something that's realistic and gritty that you can relate to as, you know, your normal life, or something that's fantastical and over the top?
Yeah, it really depends, because I did really enjoy Guardians of the Galaxy, and that is very over the top in a number of ways. But I also really enjoyed the Dark Knight trilogy because it was dark and it kind of made it a little more realistic. It made Batman seem like more of a human being, per se. Kind of going off what Dave said, like, Superman came from another planet, so I don't expect him to really make a ton of sense and, like, fit the laws of reality, whereas Bruce Wayne's just a guy, you know, he just grew up with really rich parents, and everything he has because of money. So to see in the Dark Knight trilogy where everything kind of has a reasoning, you know, the Tumbler was was built by Wayne Enterprises because of his money, and the suit's built because of his money, instead of just like these things just appear and he has a spaceship and a big long car and all this crazy stuff. It made more sense to me, and it made it a little more enjoyable. So I guess, I mean, we actually had this discussion too, being in a car for 14 hours to talk about a lot of crap. But ultimately, what the studios are trying to do is make money. So I feel like part of what they're doing is they're trying to find the formula that works. And yes, you want to please comic book fans, and I don't mean to offend present party, but you guys are like only a percentage of who they're trying to get to spend money. So if, 3/4 of the population like this movie and it's absolutely nothing like the comic book, but they go and spend their paychecks there, they're more than likely going to go ahead and do that because that's what's going to make them more money. So what it comes down to, what I like both. But I feel like they're going to do whatever the hell they have to do to make money, and they're just going to kind of keep changing the formula until they figure out what works, and then they're going to beat the crap out of it until people are sick of it.
Do you think do you think DC is thinking that the general public will accept these heroes more since they do look like us and are more set more in realistic, real world kind of?
I don't know. I feel like when you get further and further away from like the bigger ones, like if it wasn't for this podcast, I probably wouldn't I didn't know about the Great Lakes Avengers until right now. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know about
you.
Yeah. I didn't know about the Suicide Squad till a couple weeks ago, and just a lot of the things that I learned just talking with you guys. But I feel like the more and more they beat the dead horse of Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, and all that, and the more they go away from the popular comic book characters, the less you have to find the formula and then take the lesser-known characters and put it into the formula to make a successful movie, because less and less people will know what that character's backstory is. I hope that makes sense, because I feel like I just kind of rambled a little bit.
Yeah, no. Those lesser-known characters are actually a lot of times more interesting than the ones that everybody knows. And I think Marvel has actually been able to. It's been to their advantage of not having some of the major characters that they don't own the rights to, like Spider-Man, like the X-Men, like the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I mean, and I will definitely agree with everything Matt said. Especially, I won't take offense, because in 2015, and you look at comic book sales, right now, a really well-selling book sells maybe 120,000 copies. If they only sold 120,000 movie tickets, that would be it. There wouldn't be any movies, right? So they're in the business to make movies. And I do agree with if Marvel had Spidey and the X-Men and the Fantastic Four right now. Let's forget the Fantastic Four. X-Men and Spidey, they might be falling back on them a lot because they're the main stables. But I think historically, Warner Brothers' issue is they're always trying to figure out, like you said, they're trying to figure out what works. What are people going to go see? Man of Steel made a lot of money, so in their minds it worked. But like with those Batman movies, the ones from the 90s. Yes, the first movie worked. The second movie didn't work as well. So Schumacher came in as a fan of the 60s TV show and said, oh, well, let's put some of those elements in. People like that show. Let's make the movies feel like that. Oh, well, of course. The show is a success. This should work. I think that's part of the problem, is that it's not, Marvel is Marvel Studios. So that's all the same people who are in control, all the same people making decisions, DC is owned by Warner Brothers right now, so it's a movie company that they lost their big their big franchise came to an end. Harry Potter came to an end, So now they need to step up with the superhero movies, and the Dark Knight trilogy worked really well, made them money, so, okay, let's do Superman. Oh, well, the Dark Knight movies worked, let's make Superman like the Dark Knight movies. But is that the version of Superman we really want, you know? As a comic book fan, no, but again, it made them money, so that's what we get.
Anessa, you've been quiet on this. Your opinion on whether you like, realistic or fantastical superhero movies?
It doesn't really matter with me so long as they're done well. I mean, I mean, if I have a preference of going to, for example, saying something fantastical and it's always done grapply, I'm probably not going to watch fantastical superhero movies. So, yeah, I mean, I'm open to realism or something just completely out there, just so long as it's written and well acted. Yeah, that's my take on it.
I watched this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You guys, Brad and Anessa, have not yet. I'm sure, Dave, have you watched? Did you?
Oh,
watch?
yes.
Yeah. So you know how good it is.
Yes.
I think that they handled the fantastical and the realistic so well in that just that one episode.
Yeah.
Because they're dealing with the stuff that they have never dealt with before, and I think Marvel does a really good job of kind of bridging that gap a little bit, covering both ends.
Yeah,
I kind of have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
With superhero movies, because I mean, not all of them are going to be vigilantes that kind of made their way. Some characters are going to be from other planets, or like the Flash somehow magically got his superpowers because of an accident or what have you. So you kind of have to figure out a way to balance the realism and the over-the-topness of comic book movies. So, yeah.
Well, I think we covered some good ground here. Do you think we covered enough of this ground, or does anybody have some final thoughts before we wrap things up?
No, but if you want to hear more about my opinions of the current DC movies, check out the latest Superhero Speak at superheroespeak.com.
Great plug.
Yep, I just subscribed on iTunes.
Oh,
there
cool,
you go.
thanks.
Subscription. Bam. All right. Hey, before we get to the very end portion of the show and some announcements and Matt's wrap up of his trip to Arnold Fest, we have a new feature from a former guest. Actually, he's been a guest twice on this podcast, Daryl Johnston from the UK. He has a brand new segment for the SciFi Geeks Club. It's called Who Knew? And this is what it sounds like.
Who Knew? A brief collection of gossip, news and rumours transcending space and time. Things you may have missed on the run-up to this week. These include Doctor Who magazine number 484 is out on the shelves, featuring an interview with Stephen Moffat. Also, a nice little piece from Paul McGann giving his opinion on Peter Capaldi. Michelle Gomez is back and has been spotted in her trademark Mary Poppins-esque purple suit chatting to Clara Oswald. Snippets of conversation have been heard, but spoilers! Speaking of Clara, it was reported that Jenna had planned to leave the show at the end of Series 8, but asked Stephen Moffat for a reprieve. She then asked him again when she planned to leave at Christmas. Seems Clara's going to be the companion, with no hint of a new one in sight. This has set some forums into speculative overdrive. On Friday last week, the crew and cast shared a all-female TARDIS shoot for International Women's Day. It was great to see and almost empowering as Romana 2, the president of Gallifrey. A collection of forum questions and answers and hints coming up now. Filming continues in Tenerife and a few leaked pictures are available. If you search hard, you may even see Missy with a... well, let's not go into that. I can confirm, however, she has been pictured drinking tea. How very British. Once the filming there is out the way, a couple of self-contained episodes are to be filmed, so it looks like they'll be returning to the streets and quarries of Cardiff. Stephen Moffat has also said he's reworking a story he did for Big Audio, so it could be that one, or it might be that one. Anyway, that's all for this week. Or is it next week? This has been an Imperial Steam Files production. I did this podcast for Queen and Country. I did this podcast for Queen and for Country.
There you go. Who knew? Daryl Johnston. That's. I love
Nice.
his voice. He's awesome, and hopefully Matt did not take the time to stick a ice pick through his ears during that segment, because I know.
I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. Half the stuff he was saying, it's just
Are you up for talking about your trip, your sojourn to Arnold Fest?
yeah, absolutely. I had an incredibly fun weekend. So for the majority of people who probably don't know, we went to the Arnold Sports Festival in Columbus, Ohio, which at its roots is a bodybuilding competition and weightlifting expo. That a boatload of very over-muscly, over-tanned guys and girls attend. But there's other stuff. There's fencing. I learned that there is extreme jump roping, which we got sucked into watching for quite a long time. And actually, being stuck watching there is how we saw Arnold.
Was he walking amongst the people?
Not really, because so we're standing there watching extreme jump roping, and all of a sudden we see a couple FBI agents walking around, and cops and drug dogs and stuff, and then all of a sudden this large group starts forming, and it was right at the end of stairs and escalators, and they had kicked everyone off of the escalators and told people that they couldn't move, essentially. They said you can go the opposite direction, but you can't go up the stairs. So a large group formed, and everyone's like, oh, I hear Arnold's on his way down. So we're like, screw it, let's stand here. So we stood right on the outside of the lane, and no shit, all of a sudden you see like 8 million people with Arnold in the middle come down this escalator, and he walked right past us, like he was 2 feet away from me, and my best friend Jake and I both had our hands out, and Arnold got like a foot past us, and he stops and turns around and shakes Jake's hand, and then keeps going. And Jake turns and he looks at me, and I'm like, I just started rubbing his hand, and I'm like, dude, we've touched the man. And he basically went on stage and had his picture taken with the extreme jump ropers, and whatever. But we were waiting for him to come back, because I'm like, well, I want to shake his hand. And some guy was standing next to us, and he was like, he's being a huge dick, and he's like, oh, go figure, we're here at the Arnold Sports Fest, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's here. And I said, you know what, man, like, he's kind of paved the way for all of this. Bodybuilding as a sport and everything is kind of because of him. So I said, you're here. Don't be salty about it. But anyways, I digress. Another guy he's a big CrossFit fan, so he met a lot of guys that do CrossFit podcasts, and there's a YouTube video I watch called Bro Science. It's this guy who plays like a New Jersey, muscly tan guy, and he just kind of makes fun of the gym. And he was there, so we actually got our picture taken with him. His name's Dom Mazzetti. We got a lot of free pre-workouts and protein bars, and you just walk around and there's like icy machines of like the stuff that they're trying to sell, and you just fill it up and you kind of go. And
did you meet up with Ryan Gillen?
We did not. We tried. There was no cell phone reception in the expo center. So Saturday morning he emailed me and he was like, here's my phone number, and I was like, well, this is what we're doing. We'll meet up. And it was just like we kept missing each other. And he went and saw Conan at the end of Saturday, and we fell asleep because we walked everywhere. I mean, we walked like 3 or 4 miles a day. So we fell asleep, and then when I woke up, he was at this casino party, and we went to bed really early because it was daylight savings. So we lost an hour driving there Thursday, and then lost another hour Sunday morning. But then when we drove back, we got the hour back. So times were really screwed up. But we ended up leaving Ohio at like 8 a.m. because the guy who drove started a new job on Monday.
Oh man.
So we touched base, but we didn't get a chance to actually meet up, which sucked. But I'm like, what can you really do? It's, there was so much to do. I ate a lot of pizza too, like an obscene amount of pizza. I watched a guy deadlift 700 pounds. Like,
Oh wow.
yeah, and this, I actually have a video on my phone I might have to send you guys, but there was a guy doing commentary for all the powerlifting, and his name is Gino, and he probably did a lot of acid and really likes Ozzy Osbourne and AC/DC, and there was a lifter who everything's done in kilograms, so he was the only one, and every time we saw him lift, he was always lifting 302.5 kilograms, which is 666.9 pounds. So every time this guy would come up, Gino would just start screaming, 666, the number of the beast! And then they would start playing Iron Maiden, and it was freaking hilarious. But yeah, that was Arnold Fest weekend. I'm hoping to go again next year. I will, now that I know what I'm getting into, I'll make a better effort and better plans with Ryan to kind of meet up. But
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for the report.
Mhm.
Okay. Dave Markowski, thank you for being our guest on this episode of the SciFi Geeks Club. Tell us where people can find you, and give a brief description again about the Superhero Speak podcast.
All right. Brief description. Again, it's a weekly show all about comic books. We talk a lot about the movies, the TV shows, and news and rumors that are all around the comic books. And we have guests again like Ron Friends, Tom DeFalco, J.G. Jones has been on the show, and you can find us on superheroespeak.com, iTunes and Stitcher. Tune in, and follow us on Facebook at Superhero Speak. Every week we ask a trivia question of the audience, and then people will respond either through Twitter or our Facebook page, and we randomly pick a winner and announce them on the show. This week's question, I'll let you guys know, and then maybe after this you guys can try to answer. If anyone here watched Smallville when it was on the air, they had a proto Justice League on the show on one of the episodes, and the question was, who were the characters involved in that Justice League, and what were their alter egos? What were their secret identities? So yeah, that was the question. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun, and yeah. Did you want the ones in the portrait, or the ones that we actually get to see in the episode? The ones we actually see in the episode. Okay.
I know they threw in a lot of future or present superheroes in the final seasons. I know the one version of the Flash made an appearance on one episode. Was that one of the ones that was in that?
Bart Allen appears a couple of times actually in Smallville.
Yeah, he's kind of an ass too, as I recall.
Yes, very much so. On Smallville.
All right, cool, Dave. We'll have to check out that podcast, and maybe we'll get some new listeners coming your way. Who knows?
Cool.
All right. You can search for us on iTunes, Stitcher, and iTunes. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? If you like what you hear, please leave us 5 stars and a positive review, and tell your family and friends about us. Leave us feedback, galacticnetcasts@gmail.com, or call our voicemail number, which is 805-328-3966, and leave us a message. And you can find us on all the social networks, particularly our Facebook group, trying to grow that and make it into a cool community. So log or search for us on Facebook and join our Facebook group. Okay, before we get out of here, Brad has some big news. Brad, what's your announcement?
My announcement is that Galactic Netcast is launching a new show that I will be hosting with a friend of mine, Glenn Butner. And the show will be called Adventure Party. And it is about games and gaming and storytelling. Now, it's not limited to role-playing games. There will be talk of console games, of board games, games in general. So that starts, we'll be recording our first show Saturday. That would be March 14th, and at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. And you can go to either our YouTube page, Galactic, or youtube.com/galacticnetcast, or go to galacticnetcast.com, find the live page. Hopefully we'll have that link up there. Remind me, Brad. We'll put the we'll embed your YouTube player into that page. Okay, cool. And yeah, as of right now, I put in a 1 minute sort of an introduction to the show, and it is appearing on iTunes right now. You can go to the galacticnetcast.com page and select. It's under the list of different podcasts that we offer. You can now find Adventure Party there. I'm assuming that at some point here, pretty soon, we'll be on Stitcher as well. Yeah, we submitted that today. So excellent. Hopefully that will get approved and we'll be on there as well. So everywhere that you would find, the Alien Invasion Show, the Sci-Fi Geeks Club, you will also find Adventure Party. And Weird World Weekly, don't forget. And I'm sorry, yes, I did forget Weird. Shame on me. Weird World Weekly. Matt will kick your ass. And we just kind of fly under the radar. Just so you know, I do listen to that show every week. Thank you. And we got to record this weekend. Sorry to hear that. But you're the best part of the show. No offense, Dave. That's okay. I'm happy to be second in that. It's definitely more in my wheelhouse than this one is. So in your weird house. My weird house. Okay. All right. So thank you for joining us. And on behalf of Brad, Anessa, Matt, and Dave, I call this meeting of the Sci-Fi Geeks Club adjourned. We'll talk to you next time. Bye. Bye, Dave. Bye, Dad.